A cold wind mixed with the thick smell of blood swept across the broken streets. Under the dim sky, dust-covered screens lay hidden in the ruins. Suddenly, these screens flashed with white light, dense static snow flying across their displays. Weak electrical currents emanated from every broadcasting device in Osaka. These electronic devices, long abandoned due to lack of power, suddenly resumed normal operation. The residents who were gathered together, arguing, silent, praying, or fighting among themselves, all paused simultaneously and turned to look at the ruins. After a brief pause, an intermittent voice suddenly came from the screens. Can you hear me? At the moment this voice echoed through the city, the Black Kill Group members who were riding motorcycles through the streets maintaining evacuation order, suddenly froze. They all turned their heads to look at the snow-filled screens in the ruins at the street corners, their eyes gradually brightening. This voice. It's the chief. It's the chief. Except for those 3 words, the Japanese is quite awkward. It must be the chief. The chief is back? Among the excited Black Kill Group members speculating, Imoriyu's face was filled with excitement. He quickly ran to the ruins nearby, dug out an old radio and turned the volume to maximum. The voice continued to come from the radio. I am the chief of the Black Kill Group, Shinchinju. If you can hear this message, I need your help. At the center of the magic array, Lin Chia's figure landed beside Yuzuri Takashiro's body, looking worriedly at Inchinyu nearby. How is he? It's okay, he can be saved. Inchinyu pushed up his glasses and said calmly. Right now he's just in a weakened state because the suppressive effect of the drug has disappeared. If we had been 1 day later, even with the medicine I prepared to treat him, it would have been too late. However, according to my previous calculations, there should have been at least 2 months until the drug became ineffective. Why did it happen so much earlier? Lin Chia's gaze fell on Yuzuri Takashiro, and after a moment of silence he slowly spoke. He has suffered. And Qingyu sighed, taking out a sealed dark green drug from his chest. While connecting a syringe, he said, during the time at the training camp, I had already completely decoded all the files of the God Creation Project, and reverse-engineered the composition of that drug. After improvements, it should be able to completely fix this child's genetic defects. However, his depleted life force cannot be compensated. You mean? He will have a shortened lifespan and by quite a lot. I understand. Lin Chia closed his eyes helplessly. Everything comes with a price. The God Creation Project gave Yuzuri Takashiro great power, but similarly, it also took something from him. If Inchinyu hadn't spent so much time developing the drug, he would have been a corpse long ago. The fact that Yuzuri Takashiro could now eliminate his genetic defects and grow up healthily was already something to be thankful for. As the drug was injected into Yuzuri Takashiro's body, the paleness gradually faded from his face, and his painfully furrowed brows slowly relaxed. A moment later, Yuzuri Takashiro weakly opened his eyes. Seeing Lin Chia and Inchinyu before him, he was stunned for a moment, then spoke hoarsely. Brother Chi, am I in heaven? A smile appeared at the corner of Lin Chia's mouth as he reached out to pat Yuzuri Takashiro's blood-stained white hair. Unfortunately, an angel like you shouldn't return to heaven so early, so we brought you back. Yuzuri Takashiro was stunned for a while, then a smile bloomed on his face. He reached out to support himself on the ground, seemingly wanting to sit up, but Inchinyu immediately extended his hand and helped him lie back down. The drug is repairing your genetic defects, you shouldn't move around carelessly. Oh, okay. Yuzuri Takashiro blinked. This brother is? Inchinyu, my vice captain. Lin Chia smiled slightly. He's the one who saved your life. Hello, brother Qingyu. Yuzuri Takashiro greeted obediently. A shy smile appeared on Inchinyu's face. Brother Chia, how's the human circle? Yuzuri Takashiro asked worriedly as if remembering something. You're in this state and you're still thinking about saving those people? Yes, it's my mission. Do you really think it's worth it? Yuzuri Takashiro was silent for a moment, then turned his head to look at the little girl holding a bright yellow teddy bear, sitting timidly in the corner watching him. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly. Yes, it's worth it. Looking at Yuzuri Takashiro's determined eyes, Lin Chia sighed helplessly after a moment. Don't worry, this forbidden spell is killing the corpse beasts within the human circle. They don't have time to slaughter ordinary people anymore. Yuzuri Takashiro looked at the black sun in the sky emitting terrifying beams of light. His expression relaxed somewhat as he smiled and said, "Brother Chie, you're amazing, easily accomplishing what I couldn't do." "I just took a shortcut." Lin Chie shook his head, his gaze falling on the figures bravely charging through the corpse beasts in the distance, and smiled slightly. "Besides, I'm not fighting alone." Yuzuri Takashiro followed his gaze, and envy appeared in his cross-star-like eyes. "However, don't be too happy too soon," Lin Chie reminded him. "Although there's no more threat from the corpse beasts, these people will still kill each other, which in some ways is more terrifying than the corpse beasts." Hearing these words, Yuzuri Takashiro's expression became serious again. He frowned as if thinking seriously. "Brother Chie, tell me, how can people stop fighting? Why can't everyone be a little kinder and live together harmoniously?" Lin Chie stared into his eyes, his expression somewhat complex. "Takashiro, not everyone's heart is as pure and kind as yours. As long as greed, evil thoughts, or other negative emotions arise in their hearts, the red moon will amplify them infinitely, and human society can never be crystal clear. In such circumstances, the evil in people's hearts will grow wildly like weeds, and they will use malicious blades to hurt everyone around them. As long as the red moon's contamination exists, they won't be able to put down their evil thoughts and restrain their behavior through reason and morality. There's only one way to make them stop fighting. That is to use extreme fear, to use a stronger evil than theirs, to shatter their greed and wickedness, and shock their spirits into submission. A stronger evil." Yuli Tangbai muttered these words, seemingly puzzled. Lin Chie slowly stood up, his right hand gripping the meditation cushion, his left hand waving gently as a shade of night spread out, controlling all nearby steel to fly into the sky, rapidly twisting and folding. "Watch carefully," Lin Chie calmly spoke. "Pure goodness cannot save this world. Only fear can stop the weapons of war." Under the dim sky, the black steel fragments folded into a majestic steel throne dozens of meters high, simultaneously wrapping the meditation cushion within. Thorns and sword edges intersected around the throne, emanating a chilling light that made one's heart tremble. Above it was the black sun emitting terrifying beams. Lin Chie took a step forward, his figure flickering to the steel throne suspended high in the sky, his gaze sweeping across the devastated ruins of the city as he slowly sat down. Black sun throne, deep red cloak. As Lin Chie sat there, two golden furnaces seemed to dance in his eyes. Surging faith power flowed from the caged bird, in his chest into the steel throne concealing the meditation cushion below. A faint river of aurora encircled him like a ribbon. Prohibited domain amplification begins. Lin Chie sat upright on the steel throne, looking down at the mortal world below like a high and mighty king. He parted his lips and spoke softly. "Tyrant's wrath." Boom. Under the cushion's amplification, a prohibited domain spread from the throne to the surroundings at an astounding speed, instantly covering all of Osaka before continuing to expand in all directions. Kobe, Nara, Kyoto, Nagoya, Tokyo, city after city was enveloped by Tyrant's wrath, until the last city was included, and this prohibited domain had expanded to its very edges. This was a Tyrant's wrath that covered the entire human circle. This meditation cushion, suspected to be a supreme god's divine mark, could amplify ordinary prohibited domains to rival divine laws when infused with sufficient faith power. Bai Li Pangpang sat on this cushion for over 50 years, and universal disarmament resisted the red moon's pollution for over 50 years. Now with Lin Chie sitting on this cushion, his tyrant's wrath covered the entire human circle. An extremely terrifying pressure of fury crashed down from the steel throne beneath the black sun. In an instant, every person in every corner of the human circle, whether they were killing each other, frantically fleeing, or cowering to survive, felt their shoulders sink as unprecedented fear welled up in their hearts. Their legs bent uncontrollably and they suddenly fell to their knees. The entire human circle, with a population of nearly 50 million, simultaneously knelt toward that steel throne in Osaka, like commoners who dared not show any resistance under the tyrant's fury. Killing, conflict, cursing, injustice. All evil acts came to an abrupt halt. Without bloodshed or sacrifice, except for the frenzied corpse beasts in Osaka, the human circle fell into absolute silence. Under extreme evil, all beings ceased fighting. Only a small group of people were exceptions. The roar of engines echoed above the ruins as trucks and vans loaded with corpse beast remains sped along the broken streets, driving straight from the edges of the battling city toward the black sun. Imori Yutaka stuck his head out of the window, excitedly waving at the familiar figure standing on the rooftop. "Big leader. We're here. Long time no see, big leader." "Haha. I knew it. Big leader would definitely come back. Big leader is the best." Seeing these approaching vehicles and the wave of cheers in the distance, Shin Qingzhu couldn't help but smile. When releasing Tyrant's Wrath, Lin Chia deliberately avoided these Black Kill Group members. The speed of collecting corpse beast bodies with just the caretakers was too slow. With these Black Kill Group members distributed throughout various areas of Osaka helping, efficiency would increase significantly. "Jiang Air, remember to translate for me later." He seemed to recall something and turned to speak to the floating Jiang Air beside him. "Got it," Jiang Air shrugged. "I don't know how a half-baked person like you who can't even speak Japanese became the big leader of these people." Shin Qingzhu smiled without saying anything. One after another Black Kill Group members got off their vehicles and began transporting the bound corpse beast bodies to the center of the magic array. Imori Yutaka quickly ran to Shin Qingzhu, his eyes full of excitement. "Big leader. When did you come back?" "Just now." Shin Qingzhu's gaze swept over the other members, confusion appearing in his eyes. "Why are there still so many people left? Didn't I give you thousands of spots to enter Utopia with the upper evil society?" "Big leader, you underestimate the Black Kill Group's expansion speed," Imori Yutaka smiled. "Most of the old members have already left with the upper evil society, but some core members didn't want to leave here and stayed with me. These people now are mostly newcomers who recently joined after hearing about us. However, a large portion of them contracted red-eye frenzy syndrome and became insane, so we isolated and controlled them in advance. They've been admiring you, big leader, for a long time." Shin Qingzhu nodded. "Thank you for your hard work. It's our honor to continue serving, big leader." Imori Yutaka turned and shouted to the Black Kill Group members who had finished unloading. "Let's go. Get back in the vehicles. Continue working." "Yes." As the forbidden spell fuel became abundant, its Black Sun Ritual's fire defense line could barely eliminate this wave of corpse beast attacks. Deep red beams continuously poured out, tearing one corpse beast body after another into pieces. Under the deterrence of Tyrant's Wrath, everywhere in the human circle had fallen silent. Only the flames of war in Osaka burned more and more fiercely, turning into a battlefield of destruction. In a corner of the ruins, Lu Wei sat on his electric scooter, gazing at the distant black sun, steel throne, and the deep red figure fighting among the corpse beasts, admiration appearing in his eyes. "The young are truly impressive." He turned his head to look into the distance, where massive black shadows were moving toward here at an alarming speed on the horizon, including several emitting terrifying Klein-level auras. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Wei put his yellow helmet back on and twisted the scooter's handle, wobbling toward those Klein-level corpse beasts. The approach of this yellow figure didn't attract any attention from the wave of corpse beasts. They all stared fixedly at the heart of purification, in the center of the magic array, their eyes full of fury. The howling gale surged from the charging corpse beast, sweeping debris from the ground ruins into the sky. In the endless roars, the electric bike steadily maneuvered under the corpse beast's feet. Suddenly, a beast's giant palm rose and slammed down with incredible speed toward Lu Wei's position, a dark shadow rapidly expanding in the reflection of the yellow helmet. Lu Wei raised an eyebrow, slowly releasing his right hand from the handlebar, and casually pressed against the falling massive palm. Boom! A muffled explosion rang out as a visible shockwave suddenly spread from the electric bike center. The ground cracked inch by inch, forming a circular crater that sank downward. Amid the sweeping winds, the corpse beast's body, nearly 20 stories tall, was instantly thrown back and crashed to the ground, as if it weren't a world-destroying monster but rather an ugly plush toy. Lu Wei calmly withdrew his palm. The electric bike beneath him had absorbed the giant beast's impact yet remained completely undamaged, as clean as new. He looked up at the thrown beast, hesitated for a moment, slowly got off the bike, propped up the kickstand, then unhurriedly took out several boxes of pizza from the thermal box at the rear of the bike. At the same time, several delivery receipts suddenly appeared on the pizza box's surface. The recipient was the corpse beast, and in the delivery items column, there were only two simple characters. Death. Your delivery. Lu Wei's hands holding the pizza boxes trembled slightly, and the boxes instantly vanished. The next moment, several thunderous explosions rang out beside him. Blinding flames erupted from the recently roaring corpse beasts, engulfing their forms completely. These level corpse beasts were blown into scattered pieces before they could even locate their enemy. Lin Chia, seated on the Iron Throne, sensed the terrifying aura transmitted from afar and was slightly startled. Under the enhancement of the meditation mats, Lin Chia couldn't switch or move independently, and couldn't even open his eyes to see what was happening in the distance, but he could still clearly sense that surging human ceiling level aura. Another human ceiling? And this aura, why does it feel so familiar? Mount Fuji. Amamiya Haruhiko and others turned to look at Muki, their dim eyes gradually brightening. You can pull it out? Hashimi Shota looked at Muki suspiciously. It has merged with this mountain, don't push yourself too hard. Hearing these words, Muki's eyes instantly curved into crescents, looking at Shota with a playful smile. Shota, are you worried about big sister? And not at all. The smile on Muki's face grew even brighter. Muki, are you really confident about this? Amamiya Haruhiko asked seriously. I don't know, I've never wrestled with a mountain before. Muki shrugged. Well, give it a try then. Amamiya Haruhiko pulled Shota and Yurina back several steps. Since no one else could pull out this function, they had no choice but to trust Muki this once. Muki looked back at them and shook her head. Too close, step back further. The four of them were stunned and retreated 100 meters before stopping. Further back, Muki continued. Their mouths twitched slightly as they retreated another 300 meters. Keep going. Isn't this a bit excessive? Kabara Yashiki couldn't help speaking up. Is she planning to split the entire mountain in half? Never mind that, let's just do as she says and keep retreating. Amamiya Haruhiko pulled him back another 500 meters, until Muki and her red Haori appeared as just a red dot in their vision, then they finally stopped. Seeing this, Muki slowly turned her head, her bewitching eyes narrowing as she gazed at the half-exposed sword handle before her. Zongshan? Muki muttered, let's see just how heavy this mountain of yours is. She extended her soft, delicate hands to grip Zongshan. Handle took a deep breath and suddenly exerted force. Boom! A thunderous explosion rang out from Mount Fuji's peak, terrifying air waves swept outward, and the snow covering the circular mountain peak instantly burst apart. A ring of avalanche rolled down from the summit, the flying snow interweaving with the blackened mountain body, mixing with the flowing clouds in the sky and drifting down. The entire Mount Fuji began to violently shake. Muki's hands tightly gripped the sword handle, her vermilion Haori fluttering in the fierce wind. Her bare feet pressed against the blackened mountain surface as fine cracks rapidly spread beneath them. Her golden vertical pupils shone like two blazing suns, radiating incomparable brilliance. The Zongshan sword handle in her grasp actually began to tremble slightly. Rise! Muki roared, and a vermilion wave exploded outward with her at its center. Crack! Several fierce, thick fissures suddenly split open from the rock body where Zongshan was located, producing thunderous sounds, then rapidly spread down the volcano's mouth like pythons toward the lower mountain body. Black rocks exploded, white snow collapsed, these fissures extended downward from the peak. From a distance, it looked as if someone was pressing down on Mount Fuji's mouth, trying to forcibly tear it apart. Amamiya Haruhiko and the others, hiding a kilometer away, were shocked with their mouths agape. A mountain fissure dozens of meters wide was rapidly flying toward them. Kabara Yashiki cried out in surprise and quickly dove to the mountain body on the other side, barely avoiding being swallowed by the mountain directly. She can really shake Mount Fuji with her bare hands. What kind of monster is she? Kabara Yashiki stared wide-eyed at the figure bursting with red light at the mountain peak, exclaiming. Star Shota was equally shocked, his jaw nearly dropping to the ground. He stared at this scene muttering, she's actually this powerful? This is Muki. Amamiya Haruhiko couldn't help but sigh. The strongest individual fighter among the 9 Magatsu swords, known as a human-form nuclear weapon. I knew she was strong, but I didn't expect her to be this formidable. Boom! With a thunderous explosion, that red light at the mountain peak blazed to its extreme. A dark-colored long sword was forcibly pulled from the mountain body, those fierce fissures crisscrossing the rock intertwined, and massive amounts of mountain body collapsed with a rumble. Amid rolling thick smoke, it tumbled down the steep slope like the end of the world. As the dust settled, the originally circular massive mountain body was left incomplete, covered everywhere with fierce and terrifying giant fissures. Mount Fuji was now in ruins. In the rolling thick smoke, a voluptuous figure wearing a vermilion haori, holding a dark-colored long sword, slowly walked down from the mountain peak. "Here's your sword." Wuji casually tossed the Sungshan into Amamiya Haruki's hands, speaking expressionlessly as if she hadn't just shaken a mountain but merely pulled out a weed, completely composed. "Shota, was your big sister amazing just now?" She walked up to Hashimi Shota, pinched his cheeks, and a playful smile appeared on her otherwise indifferent face. Hashimi Shota's cheeks turned red as he stepped back twice. It was just okay." "Oh really? Then when we get back tonight, big sister will show you something even more amazing." You vixen. Stop talking nonsense." While Hashimi Shota was being mercilessly teased, Amamiya Haruki received the sword, lowered his head to examine it carefully for a moment and nodded slightly. He put down the wooden box from his back and opened it. The large container held 4 Magatsurugi swords neatly arranged, each emitting different lusters. Just as Amamiya Haruki was about to place phone among them, the mountain beneath their feet suddenly began to shake violently again. Everyone present turned their gaze toward Wuji. Wuji raised an eyebrow. "Why are you looking at me?" "It wasn't me this time." "Not you?" Furuhara Yashiki asked puzzledly. "Then who could it be?" Rumble rumble. A deep humming sound emanated from beneath the mountain. The cracks already spread across the mountain body expanded frantically again. Large amounts of rocks tumbled from the peak and dust filled the air. A strange black pillar of light suddenly erupted from the broken crater, piercing through the thick clouds, shooting straight into the sky. Cold and ancient aura surged forth from the mountain peak, deep roars echoed within the mountain, and a terrifying presence suddenly descended. The moment she sensed this aura, Wuji's expression changed slightly. She reached out to protect Hashimi Shota behind her, her eyes fixed intently on the black pillar of light at the mountain peak, her face full of gravity. "What is that thing?" Shock appeared on Furuhara Yashiki's zombie-like face. "It's a corpse beast, born from the body of the Amatsu god beneath Mount Fuji." Amamiya Haruki seemed to realize something, his brows tightly furrowed. "Land guarded by corpse gods, so that's what it meant." "What? I don't understand," Hashimi Shota asked confusedly. "This Amatsu god's corpse has been suppressed beneath Mount Fuji for countless ages. The residual divine power in its body didn't dissipate but was sealed within this mountain. Originally, even if Sungshan was pulled out, nothing unusual would have happened, but since that heart-corrupting power appeared, the Amatsu god's corpse was also contaminated. Beneath this mountain storing divine power, an incredibly powerful corpse beast was born. No, given the total amount of divine power it inherited, perhaps calling it a corpse god would be more appropriate. So after Sungshan was pulled out, that corpse god emerged?" Yuzurina sensed the aura coming from that black pillar of light piercing the sky, her pale little face full of worry. "What should we do?" "Run!" Furuhara Yashiki and Hashimi Shota shouted in unison. The 4 people didn't hesitate at all, turning to rush straight down the gradually crumbling mountain. The black pillar of light shooting into the clouds from the peak grew increasingly thick, and the mountain's tremors became intense. Suddenly, a sky-covering giant hand reached out from the crater, heavily slapping down around the circular mountain, directly creating another fierce ravine in the mountain body. Following that, a black head without facial features slowly rose from the crater, then the neck, torso, limbs. When its body completely crawled out from beneath Mount Fuji, that giant shadow had totally blocked the dim sun in the sky, casting a shadow that could cover half a city. The sunlight was swallowed by its pitch-black body outline, emitting a suffocating pressure. Although there was no aura of law power, The divine power pressure it emanated was genuinely at the divine realm. This thing is way too big. Furuhara Yashiki looked back at the huge shadow standing on the mountain peak and couldn't help but speak. One step from it would destroy half the city. It was born from an Amatsu god's corpse with perfectly preserved divine power. It's not even in the same league as the corpse beasts we saw before. The corpse god standing on the mountain peak slowly turned its head, its featureless black face looking down at these ants frantically fleeing Mount Fuji. The next moment, a vertical gap suddenly split open on its face. Behind the jagged fangs was a blood-red void. Facing the direction of the four people's escape, thick divine power rapidly gathered before the gap, flickering with red light. Boom! A fine red line shot out from the gap, instantly sweeping along the broken mountain body toward those four figures, thunderous explosion flames soaring into the sky along its path. Dodge! Seeing this, Amamiya Haruki's pupils suddenly contracted. He violently kicked Furuhara Yashiki's chest, sending him flying, while his other hand held Yuzurina in his arms as he jumped toward the right side of the mountain. Wu Ji, who was protecting Hashimi Shota, immediately held him in her embrace and flashed away to avoid that red line. Dazzling flames occupied everyone's vision, and the terrifying air blast sent them flying. Amid endless flying rock fragments, their figures heavily fell to the ground. Brother Amamiya. Yuzurina got up from the ground and cried out when she saw the bloody gash that rock fragments had carved into Amamiya Haruki's back. Just a small wound, I'm fine. Amamiya Haruki put his black kimono back on properly, took a deep breath and got up from the cracked and scorched ground, his eyes fixed firmly on the corpse god at the peak. A second red light had already started brewing at its gap. Sensing that world-destroying, terrifying aura, Amamiya Haruki's face became extremely grim. He seemed to make some determination, took off the wooden box from his back and handed it to Yuzurina. Brother Amamiya? Yuzurina was stunned. That thing's attack range is too far. If this continues, we'll all die here. Amamiya Haruki spoke calmly. Notify Takeshiro to come. You and Furuhara take these Magatsurugi swords and leave first, I'll hold it back for a while. Amamiya, that's... Furuhara Yashiki, who had just staggered to his feet, heard these words and was slightly stunned, seeming to want to say something, but Amamiya Haruki interrupted him. Go. Clang. With a clear sword ring, the deep blue sword was drawn from its scabbard. Was unsheathed. Crack. A thunderbolt crossed the sky, a raindrop broke through the dim dome, fell onto the deep blue blade, shattered into tiny droplets and splashed open. Then came the second drop, the third. In an instant, torrential rain crashed down from the heavens like a silver celestial river, submerging the devastated Mount Fuji. Amamiya Haruki stood silently in the pouring rain, wearing a black kimono and holding a long sword, his sharp eyes narrowing as he gazed at the terrifying giant shadow at the rain-shrouded mountain peak. He bit his tongue hard, instantly filling his mouth with the taste of blood. He lowered his head and spat a mist of blood onto Amakudari, in his hands. Mixed with the surrounding rainwater, it adhered to the blade's surface, quickly transforming the deep blue blade into an eerie blood red. He turned the blade downward and thrust it forcefully into the puddle at his feet. In the water's reflection, a white-robed, white-haired sword spirit, also wielding Amakudari, thrust into the water's surface simultaneously with Amamiya Haruki, the shadows of both blades instantly merging into one. Boom! An invisible shockwave exploded outward with Amamiya Haruki at its center. His blood-stained black kimono fluttered violently in the rain, his black hair visibly beginning to turn white, and an indescribable divine aura emanated from his cold eyes. The sword spirit in the puddle's reflection began to merge with Amamiya Haruki's shadow. Amamiya Haruki took a deep breath, instantly pulled Amakudari from the puddle, and with a powerful stamp of his feet on the ground, his form flashed into a raindrop's reflection, charging toward the corpse god at the mountain peak at an astounding speed. Kogen Yashiki witnessed this scene with his mouth agape in shock. At that moment, Yuzurina beside him bit her lips, quickly shouldered the wooden box, grabbed his wrist and ran down the mountain. Quick run. In the downpour, Yuzurina's eyes were filled with sorrow and determination. Brother Amamiya has entered the rain god's state. Every second we stay here he burns away more of his life. Hurry. Pulled along by Yuzurina, Kogen Yashiki could only quickly turn around and sprint away. Yuzurina reached into her clothes and pulled out a blue-gray game controller, her fingers rapidly pressing a sequence of buttons. Up up down down left left right right baba. When the final button was pressed, the blue-gray controller transformed into a beam of light, shooting towards somewhere in the horizon, disappearing into the rain. E-rank item, call controller. On the other side of the mountain, Hashimi Shota stood up coughing in the rain, slightly startled upon seeing the black-clad figure fearlessly charging up the mountain peak. Amamiya. His eyes widened. Has he gone mad? Going alone to fight that thing with just a Magatsukami blade. Muki. Quick. Let's help him. Without any hesitation, Hashimi Shota, carrying the red sword at his waist, quickly moved to rush toward the mountaintop. He had barely taken 2 steps when the slender figure wearing a vermilion haori stopped him with her hand. Shota, it's too dangerous for you to go. Muki's bewitching eyes gazed seriously at Hashimi Shota. Though you're my sword master, you're still just an ordinary high school student. Even the slightest ripple from the battle could throw you into an irredeemable situation. But I can't abandon him alone. He's doing this to ensure your safe escape. If you turn back, everything he's doing will lose its meaning. Looking at Hashimi Shota's struggling expression, Muki's face softened with gentleness. She held his hand and spoke softly. Shota, don't you want to know why I insisted on having you as my sword master? If you can run down the mountain within 10 minutes, I'll tell you. If you don't make it, you'll be punished when we get back. This is our game for today. Muki released Shota's hand and stepped back twice. She stood quietly in the rain, her vermilion haori swaying in the wind as she smiled slightly. Well then, my sword master Hashimi Shota. Are you ready to begin today's game? Hashimi Shota stared at her for a moment, then turned to look at the black-clad figure approaching the mountain peak, unprecedented conflict showing in his eyes. Finally, he made his decision and turned to rush down the mountain. I'll keep myself safe. Hashimi Shota's voice carried through the rain. You must bring Amamiya back alive. Watching Hashimi Shota's figure frantically running down the mountain, Muki's smile grew deeper. She turned around to face the terrifying shadow at the mountain peak, her smile gradually fading. She snorted coldly, her feet violently stamping the ground, shattering a large portion of the mountainside as her form shot like a cannonball toward the peak of Mount Fuji. At the mountain peak, the black corpse god that blocked out the sky faced the direction where the group had fled, terrible divine power surging at its fissures, seeming ready to burst forth at any moment. Just then, a raindrop fell in front of the corpse god, and in its curved surface's reflection, a black-clad figure was rapidly growing larger. Play. A deep blue sword light slashed out from the rain, precisely striking the corpse god's lower jaw. The nearby rainwater reversed course around the sword light, transforming into a massive dragon of water that roared skyward. This strike directly forced the corpse god's head up slightly, and the red threads of destruction burst forth from the fissure, grazing past the mountainside and soaring into the sky, splitting the distant city ruins and the sky in two, with thunderous explosions echoing across the horizon. White-haired Amamiya Haruki gripped his sword with both hands, his body half suspended in the sky, blade aimed at the corpse god's head, slashing down again. Boom! The corpse god's right hand struck Amamiya Haruki at a speed impossible for the human eye to track, the giant palm like a building compressing the air, producing a deep explosive sound as it smashed him down into the shattered mountain below. Amamiya Haruki's hands gripped the sword handle tightly, barely managing to keep hold of Amakudari. His back smashed through the mountain, causing him to violently cough up blood, his face deathly pale. If he hadn't merged with the sword spirit to enter the rain god state, this single strike would likely have taken his life. Before Amamiya Haruki could crawl out from the mountain debris, the corpse god raised its sky-blocking foot and stomped down toward his location in the rubble, as if trying to crush an insignificant ant. A vermilion figure rapidly crossed the sky. Muki's fist instantly pierced through the rain curtain, meeting the corpse god's foot head-on. Her fist struck the surface of the skin flowing with black liquid, producing a metallic clash, while a visible shockwave burst forth between fist and foot. The ground beneath Muki's feet exploded. That delicate white hand actually withstood the sky-blocking giant foot of the corpse god. Muki's vermilion haori danced wildly in the fierce wind, her bewitching fox-like eyes blazing with fighting spirit. In an instant, Mookie deliberately moved her fist down slightly, creating a tiny gap with the corpse god's foot, then punched again. Boom. This punch sent the corpse god's body reeling backward. It lifted its foot and stepped back onto the mountainside, barely managing to stabilize its massive form. Baka. A glimmer of light broke through the clouds, tracing a path across the sky before crashing into Yuli Tangbai, who was lying quietly on the ground. Yuli Tangbai's pupils suddenly contracted. Was it the pager handle he left for his sister? They must be in danger. He pressed his hands against the ground and quickly sat up, his eyes filled with urgency. Seeing this, Qingyu frowned and immediately reached out to support his body. What's wrong? Brother Qingyu, my sister is in danger, I must go there. Qingyu froze, his eyes tinged with concern as he carefully examined his body for a moment. But your genetic defect is less than 80% repaired, you haven't fully recovered. If you engage in intense combat, I must go. Yuli Tongbai's usual docility had completely vanished, his tone more determined than ever before. Qingyu hesitated for a moment but still nodded. Fine, go ahead as long as you don't fight until your last breath, I can always save you, if you don't mind becoming a monster. Yuli Tangbai paused, then smiled. Brother Qingyu, I'm already the biggest monster in this human circle. He stood up from the ground, dusted off his dust-covered red robe and reached out to grasp the air. The cyberpunk spear stuck in the ruins flew back into his hand. His figure flickered before he shot into the clouds, disappearing from the spot. Lu Wei, who was riding an electric bicycle and slowly wandering among the Klein-level corpse beasts, seemed to sense something and looked up at the sky. His gaze fell on the red-robed figure crossing through the clouds, and he let out a slight exclamation, surprise appearing on his face. There's actually another human ceiling in this human circle? And quite powerful too. It would be nice if we could recruit them to Great Xia. Lu Wei shrugged, casually tossing out a pizza box that instantly killed a Klein-level corpse beast nearby. Blood and flesh rained down but not a single piece touched him. He stopped his electric bicycle, took out 2 tickets from his chest and fell into deep thought. The task of finding Lin Chia is complete, but Wang Mian, where is he now? Yatta Mirror Gap. Deep sea ruins. 2 figures wearing diving equipment climbed out of the water, walked to the edge of the ruins and removed their oxygen masks. Strands of elderly silver hair fell from the mask as Wang Mian caught his breath for a moment, his gaze sweeping across what lay before him as he asked, puzzled. Where is this? This is the gap in the Yatta Mirror, also the hub connecting this human circle to the outside world, Wu Xiangnan calmly replied. The first thing we're looking for is here. He led Wang Mian, expertly navigating through the ruins, passing through mysterious spaces with floating building fragments, crossing through vermilion torii gates one after another, finally arriving before an ancient temple. Inside this temple stood an imposing deity statue, wrapped in golden rings and hanging magatama beads, appearing extremely majestic. In its right palm floated a silver chaotic sphere, emitting an eerie phantasmal light in the dark shrine, rolling violently as if alive. The moment Wang Mian saw this silver sphere, an unprecedented desire arose in his heart. He unconsciously wanted to reach out and obtain that silver chaotic sphere, as if doing so would break life's shackles and gain rebirth. His hand had barely reached halfway when clarity suddenly flashed in Wang Mian's eyes. He quickly stepped back 2 paces, his gaze filled with vigilance as he looked at the sphere. What is this thing? Origin. Origin? What's that? Origin is the soil that nurtures laws, the most precious thing in existence. The entire high plane of heaven probably only has this one piece of origin remaining. You're saying that with this sphere one could nurture laws? A glimmer of light immediately appeared in Wang Mian's aged eyes. For Wang Mian to become a god he must possess a law. If he could obtain this origin, would it mean he could nurture a law and ascend to godhood? Theoretically yes, but you absolutely cannot touch it. Wu Xiangnan's tone was very serious. Why? This origin is not pure, it contains impurities and the laws it contains are not compatible with your being. If you rashly make contact with it you won't survive more than 3 months. Wu Xiangnan repeated what Jiawan had said back then. If we can't use it, why did we come looking for it? Wu Xiangnan deliberately avoided looking at the sphere, staring at a corner of the temple as he slowly spoke. Just because you can't use it doesn't mean I can't. Wang Mian froze. What do you mean? During my time in the human circle, I've been contemplating ways to enter the high plane of heaven and kill Susanoo. To slay a god, the most basic requirement is to possess the power of laws. I've researched thoroughly for a long time and ultimately still focused on this origin. It's the only way that can provide me with the power of laws. You cannot absorb this origin because it's not compatible with your bodies, and it contains impurities that will continuously reject physical form until death. But I'm different. Wu Xiangnan took a deep breath, his eyes flickering with madness. My forbidden domain is sequence 233 rebirth. At the sea level I have 36 chances to die and be reborn. Each time I die, I can use my life to take away some of its impurities. Each time I'm reborn, my body becomes more compatible with its attributes. As long as I resurrect enough times, I can perfectly absorb this origin, and once it finally merges with me, I can nurture that thread of law power from within it. No matter how minute and weak it may be, this means I will have the qualification to slay gods. You're mad. Wang Mian shook his head repeatedly. Your level isn't high enough. You haven't even touched the bottleneck of becoming a god. Even if you possess a thread of law power, you can't become a god, you'll ultimately dissipate into the world. I know, Wu Xiangnan calmly replied, so before I completely merge with the origin and nurture the law to dissipation, I'll stop committing suicide, holding on to my last life. When we have Susanoo mortally wounded, I'll then consume my final life, nurture the law and deliver the fatal blow. After killing Susanoo, what does it matter if I dissipate? Wang Mian, hearing this, remained stunned for a long while before coming back to his senses. He gazed at Wu Xiangnan with complex emotions and let out a long sigh. As expected of someone from the Blue Rain team. Wu Xiangnan smiled and walked 2 steps forward, standing in front of the silver chaotic sphere. I'm going to start, Wu Xiangnan said solemnly. In a moment you'll kill me. Make it quick with your blade. Rest assured, no blade is faster than mine. Wang Mian slowly placed his hand on Yuan, at his waist. Wu Xiangnan took a deep breath, reached out his hand and forcefully grasped the chaotic sphere before him. The moment his hand entered the silver light, his expression twisted violently. The silver light frantically poured into his body and unprecedented pain invaded his consciousness. But no matter how intense the pain became, Wu Xiangnan didn't withdraw his arm. Instead he gritted his teeth and persisted, using his body to absorb more of the source. As the silver light continued to pour in, his body gradually approached its limit. Wu Xiangnan's eyes widened as he shouted, "Kill me!" Clang! A flash of blade light flashed from Wang Mian's waist, instantly severing Wu Xiangnan's head, blood gushing forth. With a thud, Wu Xiangnan's corpse fell to the ground, the silver light surging like a tide within his body, gradually dimming. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Time ticked by slowly, and after more than 10 seconds, a white light quickly flew out from the corpse, beginning to reconstruct Wu Xiangnan's body. During this process, large amounts of black impurities separated from the source within his body, condensing into nauseating black liquid that flowed on the ground. In the blink of an eye, Wu Xiangnan returned to his original form. The first life. Wu Xiangnan took a deep breath, his face still bearing traces of the pain from Wang Mian's execution. He closed his eyes and took a long moment to recover before adjusting his mindset. Continue. He opened his eyes and resolutely reached out his hand, once again touching that silver source. At the peak of Mount Fuji. Boom. 2 figures, one black and one red, rose from the shattered mountainside, charging toward the corpse god's face from different directions. Amamiya Harhide, wielding rain collapse, spun half a circle in midair. The surrounding rain instantly gathered around him, converging into a giant circular water blade, slashing toward the corpse god's neck. The sharp rainwater cut against the corpse god's surface, emitting a piercing hum. The body flowing with black liquid was carved with a deep blade mark, but no blood flowed out. Instead it began to writhe strangely. In an instant rows of jagged black fangs extended from both sides of the wound, directly transforming it into a giant mouth, suddenly biting toward the descending Amamiya Harhide. Bang! At this moment, Takiki ran vertically upward along the corpse god's body surface, her crimson haori dancing wildly in the wind. She reached out both hands, firmly pressing down on the fierce fangs on both sides. The biting giant mouth instantly came to a standstill. Takiki's eyes narrowed as she twisted her body in midair. Terrifying power transmitted through her hands, directly twisting this gap into a spiral, with cracks extending along the corpse god's neck, directly penetrating nearly half of its torso. The corpse god's body shook, its sky-blocking figure staggering backward several steps, sliding down hundreds of meters from the shattered peak of Mount Fuji. Countless rocks rolled down to the ground along its feet. It quickly raised its featureless face, its bloody gaps silently roaring at Amamiya Haruhide and Takiki in midair. It raised its giant hands and forcefully clapped them together in front of its chest. A terrifying divine power tide spread out with it at the center. What is it doing? Amamiya Haruhide felt the terrifying waves emanating from the corpse god and immediately frowned. It's imitating the abilities this divine corpse had when alive, Takiki pondered briefly before explaining. This mountain sealed in the leakage of divine power, allowing the corpse beast born from the body to inherit almost all the power this Amatsukami possessed in life. What we face is not a corpse beast that only inherited a deity's brute force, but a complete resurrected god. A resurrected god, huh? Amamiya Haruhide glanced at the corpse god frantically channeling divine power and asked, then which Amatsukami was sealed under Mount Fuji? The mountain god Ohoimitsumi. As Takiki's words fell, the divine power tide around the corpse god had completely covered Mount Fuji and the surrounding land for several kilometers. Its hands, joined in prayer before its chest, slowly opened, then as if virtually holding something, gradually raised upward. The shattered body of Mount Fuji and the mighty earth connected below it began to violently shake, with fierce cracks rapidly spreading in the mountain area. In an instant the earth shook and mountains trembled. Seconds later, this entire mountain region, as if lifted by an invisible hand, was forcibly separated from the ground and rose straight toward the sky. As this mountain mass the size of several cities rose, a vast shadow gradually enveloped all the ruined cities below. Countless rocks and dust fell from the floating mountain mass. Amidst the flying sand and stones, numerous paper cranes flew out, wrapping around the figures of Yuzurina, Kabara Yashiki and Hashimi Shota, flying away from the floating mountain area. After the three landed steadily on the ground, Yuzurina waved her sword hilt, and the countless paper cranes converged into a thin blade, which she sheathed. Kabara Yashiki looked up at the giant mountain mass slowly flying into the sky and couldn't help saying, "That corpse god actually carried such a huge mountain and flew straight up to the sky? Can those two defeat that monster?" Beside him, Hashimi Shota kept his eyes fixed on the two figures in the sky without answering, his eyes filled with worry. As the corpse god raised its hands, the mountain beneath Amamiya Haruhide and Takiki crumbled piece by piece, transforming into countless cubic stone blocks 30 stories high, rapidly sweeping up into the sky, interweaving into an enormously huge spherical cage surrounding them. These cubic stone blocks were charred black and incredibly hard, overlapping outward layer by layer, completely sealing off all escape routes for the two. These layered blocks blocked all light shining down from the sky and along with it the pouring rain. Not a single raindrop could penetrate through these blocks' blockade to enter within. Amamiya Haruhide's expression was extremely grim. In his eyes heaven and earth had fallen into darkness, with only that giant figure still standing on the mountain peak in the distance, virtually holding this mountain mass, emanating a terrifying aura that made one's scalp tingle. The corpse god faced their direction, slowly clenching its hands as if wanting to crush the ants in its palms. In an instant the endless stone blocks surrounding the two crashed toward the center, compressing, breaking, compressing again, until forming a majestic towering peak, smashing them to the ground like swatting flies. Bang! The suspended mountain peak crashed into the ground, instantly shattering into countless pieces under the terrifying collision force. The ground of the human circle trembled with a resonating shock from this impact. This strike shook the entire island nation. Amamiya Haruhiko's figure fell helplessly along with the scattered debris. His collar was soaked in blood, his pupils dilated, having completely lost consciousness. After all, he was just an ordinary person who had pushed the power of the Magotsukami to its limit. Even with the rain god's protection, his defense was far inferior to that of Muki, one of the strongest individual combatants born from a blade soul. His silver-white hair was rapidly fading, and the deep blue sword in his hand returned to its original state. His rain god state had been forcibly shattered by the corpse god, and the rain collapse, Blade Soul had suffered unprecedented damage. Fighting against a deity with just a Magatsukami was his limit. Muki's crimson Haori was covered in dust. She coughed up several mouthfuls of blood violently, her gaze falling on Amamiya Haruhiko, who was rapidly plummeting to the ground. She forcefully kicked off a huge boulder and rushed towards him. Mount Fuji's body continued to rise slowly. The giant black corpse god stood suspended at the volcano's peak, looking down at the falling ant. The grotesque crack on its face opened again, and a gleam of destructive energy began to brew. Boom! A red beam pierced through endless flying rocks, annihilating everything in its path to dust, shooting straight towards the unconscious Amamiya Haruhiko in midair. At that moment, a figure wearing a crimson Haori reached Amamiya Haruhiko first, grabbed his collar with one hand and threw him behind herself. Simultaneously, she quickly twisted her body to face the red beam that was approaching her face. Muki let out a low roar, clenched her right fist and struck out against the tip of that red beam. The red beam, capable of destroying mountains and earth, was slightly deflected by Muki's punch, but the subsequent beam immediately surged forth, instantly blasting a huge hole through Muki's body. Her right arm turned to dust, dissolving into the void. Seeing Muki deflect the beam's trajectory with one punch, the corpse god seemed to pause momentarily before redirecting the red beam towards Muki's face, apparently intending to completely annihilate her. In that instant, a cyberpunk-style futuristic spear pierced through the cloud layer like lightning. The spear tip carried terrifying kinetic energy, crashing into the corpse god's chest with a deafening resonant boom. Then the spear tip bloomed like a bouquet, and a surge of futuristic light beam forced that sky-covering figure to retreat several steps. The red beam that was about to annihilate Muki was deflected by this strike, shooting towards the clouds in the sky, tearing open what seemed like an endless rift in the clouds. A figure in red appeared in mid-air, blood-stained white hair reaching the ankles, floating slightly in the wind. It's Takeshiro. Yuzurina's eyes lit up upon seeing that red-clad figure. But when she saw the red clothes stained with blood, she paused slightly, showing concern in her eyes. Kabara Yashiki stumbled as he caught Amamiya Haruhiko thrown by Muki, while Hashimi Shota frantically rushed up the broken mountain to catch the falling Muki. That blood-stained figure, carrying massive gravitational force, landed heavily in Hashimi Shota's arms. He grunted and after absorbing part of the kinetic energy, still couldn't maintain his stance, rolling down the steep mountain slope together with her. Amid rolling dust and flying rocks, Hashimi Shota held tightly onto Muki, who had lost half her body, using his back to shield her from the impact of sharp rocks as they tumbled down from halfway up the mountain. Blood spread as pain struck from every part of his body, but his arms showed no sign of loosening. He gritted his teeth, his young face full of determination and resolution. He persisted like this until countless paper cranes arrived, catching him and Muki, wrapping around them and flying back to the foot of the mountain. The paper cranes dispersed. Hashimi Shota, covered in blood, knelt beside Muki, coughing violently. His back was a bloody mess, tangled with his torn climbing gear, looking extremely gruesome. His left arm was broken and twisted, his right arm trembling uncontrollably. That hand used for holding pens during exams was now completely ravaged. Before him, Muki, who had lost half her body, was deathly pale. She lay quietly in the spreading pool of blood, her enchanting eyes full of concern as she looked at Hashimi Shota's wounds. Shota. Don't speak. Hashimi Shota pressed his lips together, turning his head aside. Hashimi Shota, may be a useless person without any combat ability, but I'm still your blade master. I can't always be protected by you, a blade soul. Sometimes I can take care of you too. Muki stared at Hashimi Shota for a moment, a smile appearing on her pale lips. She quietly gazed at this stubborn youth, her eyes revealing deep affection and endless nostalgia. She reached out, gently touching his cheek. Indeed, no matter how many times you reincarnate, you're always you. What are you saying? Hashimi Shota was stunned. Shota, come closer, Muki spoke softly, her voice growing increasingly weak. You did very well in today's game. I'll tell you everything I promised. Hashimi Shota froze for a moment, then slowly bent down, putting his ear close to her lips, listening intently. On the ascending Mount Fuji, Yuzuri Takashiro moved his gaze from the people below, his cross-star eyes filled with rage and killing intent. Amamiya Haruhiko severely injured, Muki near death. If he had been any slower, those people at the foot of the mountain would have all been annihilated by the corpse god. You dare hurt them? Yuzuri Takashiro reached out and the cyberpunk spear automatically flew back to his hand. He gripped the spear, his red clothes fluttering in the sharp killing intent. He was this world's guardian, the protective deity in white. But even the most gentle and kind person has their breaking point, and the better their temperament, the more terrifying their fury and madness when that breaking point is reached. For Yuzuri Takashiro, his sister, Amamiya brother, and all those who were kind and close to him were his breaking point. And now his breaking point had been triggered. Level 99 plus, a god-level existence beyond my comprehension. Those cross-star eyes reflected the deep purple plus above the corpse god's head, and Yuzuri Takashiro's gaze moved downward, his eyes narrowing. There was an impossibly long health bar. Buy vitamins and supplements. Health. 193567214/248239274. The corpse god's health was about 8 times that of the Thunder Beast. The Thunder Beast was merely the spirit of the Yata mirror, belonging to divine beasts but not a true deity. Most of its divine power relied on the Yata mirror itself, so although it was god level, there was still a significant gap compared to true Amatsukami. The corpse god, on the other hand, was an evil god born from Amatsukami. Except for lacking the power of laws, it inherited almost all the power of the mountain god Oyamatsumi. Just looking at its health pool, one could tell its combat power was on a completely different level from the Thunder Beast. Yuri Takashiro dismissed the spear in one hand while sliding his other hand through the air. A virtual item panel flashed before his eyes, finally locking onto a blood-colored scythe. Item selection. SS rank ancient martial arts item. Blood Bar Reaper. SS rank item. Blood Bar Reaper. Deals true damage equal to 1% of target's maximum health per hit, ignores level, magic immunity and super armor. A line of small text floated past Yuri Takashiro's eyes. He reached into the panel and grasped the grotesque blood-colored giant scythe. Its end was wrapped in thick broken chains, and its surface was covered in dark red bloodstains from unknown victims. This SS rank item was Yuri Takashiro's greatest achievement in the past few months. He had spent countless sleepless nights running dungeons to obtain this legendary item, finally adding it to his item inventory. All of this was to have a chance of victory when facing god-level opponents again. Although compared to the SS rank wooden chopsticks that Lin Chia had pulled out earlier, this scythe's attributes were far inferior. Those chopsticks were only single-use items, while this scythe could be used indefinitely. The corpse god standing on the shattered mountain peak seemed to sense Yuri Takashiro's threat. It shifted its attention from the insects at the mountain's foot, raising its featureless face to silently look up at the red-clad figure in the sky. Scene, Yama's Hell, loading complete. As Yuri Takashiro's thought arose, a line of small text appeared in mid-air. Dong. Holding the blood-colored scythe, Yuri Takashiro rapidly expanded a domain beneath his feet. The surrounding environment instantly changed from the rising shattered mountain into a scorched land filled with hellfire. Since the corpse god inherited mountain god powers, creating a battle scene without mountains would greatly weaken its combat ability. Yuri Takashiro stomped his feet on the black ground where lava boiled, his figure becoming a lightning bolt that instantly appeared at the corpse god's side. He grabbed the broken chains at the end of the blood scythe and swung it forcefully. The chains extended at an alarming speed, and the 2-meter-long giant scythe instantly flew over 100 meters, its blade cutting through several floating mountain fragments around the corpse god before slashing its chest. Health-2482393. This single strike eliminated 1% of the corpse god's health. Although the percentage doesn't seem like much, if he could land 100 consecutive strikes, even a true deity would be forcibly ground down to a critically wounded state by Yuri Takashiro. After being wounded by this strike, the gap in the corpse god's black face violently opened and closed as if roaring. A terrifying tide of divine power swept out with it at the center. A horrifying mountain god's wrath was brewing. On the scorched ground, a red-clad figure wielding a blood scythe, like death itself gripping fate, was frantically reaping the corpse god's health. Human Circle. The surging sea gradually took on a faint bloody hue. Corpses of marine creatures floated to the surface, limbs and blood spreading out, the sea breeze carrying a thick bloody smell. A massive pixel cruise ship stood like a mountain on the sea surface, unmoved by the crashing waves. In front of the ship, a pixel platform hundreds of meters long had been completed. At its center was a small circular hole, with several Upper Evil Society members standing nearby against the waves, seemingly calculating something. Looking beneath the sea surface, one would find over 200 such pixel platforms. These pixel platforms were distributed completely vertically, their central circular holes precisely fitting together to form an ultra-long acceleration track. Above the first pixel platform on the surface hung a silver sword, its blade pointing straight to the Earth's core, emanating a cold gleam. At the front of the ship, a girl wearing a tattered cloak quietly gazed toward Japan. The sky in the distance had already taken on a reddish tinge, and her brows slightly furrowed. President, the key sword of ultimate evil, is ready and can be activated at any time. The knight walked to her side against the sea wind and solemnly said, "At your command, the Kusanagi sword will pierce through the Yata mirror's surface in 42 seconds, and this human circle will be completely destroyed." I understand." Jin Yen nodded slightly, her gaze fixed on the distance without saying more. "There's one more thing." The knight seemed to remember something. Starting half an hour ago, some members began showing symptoms of red-eyed frenzy, probably related to that strange pollution. Although I immediately isolated them, the numbers are still increasing rapidly. So far 72 people have been quarantined. How many people do we have left? Less than 40. Is that enough to activate the key sword of ultimate evil? If the goal is just to activate the key sword of ultimate evil, one person is enough. I see, then let's wait a bit longer. The knight hesitated for a moment before asking, "President, what are you waiting for? This human circle won't last much longer. In about 10 minutes at most, the pollution will completely corrode this piece of the Yata mirror, and the people living here won't survive. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid those souls will also be polluted and turn into corpse beasts. Isn't there still more than 10 minutes? Jin Yen put her hands in her pockets and calmly said, "We need to destroy the human circle and liberate the souls, but we just need to act before the Yata mirror is completely polluted. We save the deceased, but similarly, we should also give the people living in this human circle a chance to survive. After all, there are still people striving to save this country, and these tens of millions of people still have a chance to live. Until the very last moment, we can't destroy their hope. This is the most basic respect for life."